with the news, the breaking news that happened today, I thought to myself, let's look at the AFC East after free agency and kind of see where we're at going into the draft. What is up, Finn fans, but also AFC East? I'm assuming I'll have some Patriots, Bills, and Jet fans watching, and I'm going to do my best to give you an unbiased take on the AFC East and where we stand and who's where and what and all that other stuff, because it's a little craziness right now when it comes to the AFC East. So we're going to look at what essentially has happened, who's still coming, who's still going, and where the teams are. So let's jump into this, and we're gonna start with Buffalo, because Buffalo just traded Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans, and not for this year, but for next year's second, and I think a sixth. I'm surprised that didn't happen last offseason due to the fact that he's been complaining, and there's so many times that they have constantly gotten close and then fallen apart. So it's about time. It was about time. So we're going to I'm going to really quickly look at kind of who they've brought in to help each team. So like with the Bills, Curtis Samuel brought in, love that move for them, especially because now they don't have Stephon Diggs. Who else was brought in? They kept a bunch of their guys like AJ Ebeneza, Taquan Jones. They kept a bunch of those guys. Will Clapp, center, brought in, reliable guy there. Deshaun Williams, a defensive end. Mac Hollins, breaks my heart that he's now in Buffalo, but hey, what are you going to do about that? They didn't make any crazy moves they lost a lot. Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White. They still haven't, maybe they bring back Micah Hyde. Jordan Phillips is still a free agent. Leonard Floyd is gone. Trent Sherfield is now in Minnesota. So when you look at who they brought in, it's okay. Like Mike Edwards is, I guess, decent brought in. But to me, Curtis Samuel being brought in kind of negates the loss of somewhat, but they have to do something. They have all these picks now. You know, they've traded players. They've done all these things. They have all these picks now. They need to go out and make a move to get up in the draft to get a wide receiver. You can't sit at, where are they, like 26, 27? Look it up. You got to move up, and they are sitting at 28. I don't know any good wide receivers that are going to be sitting there at 28. So you got the ammunition now. You got picks to move up. You made plays. You've traded players. You got picks now to move up. Get up in that teens. Grab one of those top receivers that are out there. I don't think they're going to be able to get up in the top 5 to get Harrison Jr., but get up. They need to make some type of move to get up there. I'll give you an idea of where I think everyone stands. And you got the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, we lost some big players in Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, Andrew Van Ginkel. But the ones to me that hurt the most are Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt. Andrew Van Ginkel, good player, but I think he was kind of, with the Barrett brought over, I think that kind of makes up for that. Jerome Baker being gone, but then again, we bring in Jordan Brooks, so I'm fine with that. They bring in Jonnu Smith, great signing there. Kendall Fuller makes up for the Xavier Howard loss. Like they lost big pieces. The Dolphins are still trying to replace Christian Wilkins. In my mind, Robert Hunt hurts, but I don't think it hurts as much as Christian Wilkins. To me, out of all of the players that the Dolphins lost, Christian Wilkins is the one that's going to hurt the most. Like Brandon Jones was a thumper. horrible in coverage. Raekwon Davis didn't do really much. Deshaun Elliott, I wanted him back, but he was more of a, I think Jordan Poyer was going to be better than Deshaun Elliott. Cedric Wilson didn't do much. We brought back Braxton, Isaiah Wynn, we brought back a lot of guys, and then we even go out, bring back Benito Jones, who's with the Lions. Like, they didn't make any splashy moves, kind of like the Bills, but they still solidified some of the spots, and they were able to make an even swap, like I said, with Kendall Fuller, with the Brooks, with Baker, and don't forget, we still have Sealer, who had about 9 sacks. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Christian Wilkins gone, and Christian Wilkins. Sealer's still no slouch. Now, Christian Wilkins is, a menace up the middle, but let's not forget they still have Zach Sealer. Now, Connor Williams is still out there. There's a possibility of bringing him back. Xavier Howard hasn't signed with anyone. But to me, the Dolphins what I'm doing in this video is kind of seeing where we're at now. And right now, before the draft, they still need help in some key areas. Like, we need another safety. We need a big defensive tackle. We need some interior offensive linemen. Bringing back Kendall Lamb, which the Dolphins did, solidifies, God forbid, Laramie Tunsil, Teron Armstead goes down. We're fine with Kendall Lamb. He came in and did really well on the left tackle spot. So for me, they're like 1 or 2, maybe 3 pieces away from being like, okay, we're good. We're good. We didn't lose much. We're still there. And even the betting odds kind of are there too. So hold on, I'm looking it up because there's win prediction for the AFC East that I also want to go over, which it's pretty close. Like, the over under of what these records are going to be is pretty close. And then we have the Jets. Now, the Jets did some good things, but the Jets did some things that you hope they pan out, right? So who they brought in, Mike Williams, obviously a big Javon Kinlaw, Tyron Smith. They brought back Thomas Morstead, Solomon Thomas. The big ones for the Jets are the trade for Hassan Reddick. That one's huge. There's no knock in that trade. He's just been a menace, multiple years with double-digit sacks. Hassan Reddick being brought in is it equates losing Bryce Huff to me. Bryce Huff goes to Philly, and then they send him over, even trade there. So I don't think they get better or worse when it comes to Hassan Reddick, because it's an even trade. Now, bringing in Mike Williams, bringing back Morgan Moses, and bringing in Tyron Smith, huge if they stay healthy. And you could say that about anyone. Honestly, the Dolphins were decimated with injuries by the end of the year, and everyone could say if this and if that, blah, blah, blah. But those guys, it's not an easy, fix in my mind. Tyron Smith hasn't played a full season since 2015. Mike Williams, his injury, he's still rehabbing it. So there is talks that he might not be ready to do anything in OTAs, minicamp, maybe till like the middle, maybe beginning of training camp. I didn't know it was that serious. I thought he was good to go, and it's worse than that. So, we got to keep an eye on that. And Morgan Moses, yes, he played a full season, but he had a torn bicep or pec for the whole season. So these 3 guys are guys that, 2 of them are your anchors to protect Aaron Rodgers, and the Jets can be very good, but it's like, it could go one. The Jets to me are the biggest unknown in the AFC East. I'll get to all that prediction stuff. And then we have the Patriots. The Patriots are quiet. They're doing a rebuild. They're making small moves here and there, like Antonio Gibson. Who else did they bring in? KJ Osborne, Austin Hooper. They made small little moves to help them. They brought back a lot of their own, like Jalen Reagor. But they lost a few, like Trent Brown, Mike Gesicki, Mac Wilson, Miles Bryant. They are in a rebuild mode. They're full rebuild, new head coach, all this stuff. They're gonna not be great this year. They're gonna be more competitive, in my opinion, but they're not gonna be too great. So when you look at the AFC East, right, has it changed? Has the whole dynamic of the AFC East changed to me, when I look at each of the teams, right? When I look at the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen is the heart and soul of that team. That man's healthy. That man's on the field. To me, they win a minimum of 10 games. And I think Vegas it is, or DraftKings has him at 10.5. Yes. Regardless of who his receivers are, boom, that's who you predicated on. You let him do his thing, because if you look at Buffalo last year, he was struggling, and then they got rid of the offensive coordinator, brought in the new one. The new one was like, hey, Allen, do your thing, play backyard football. And it worked, and they won and they won and they won until they had to win. Not a knock on you. It's just kind of the Bills story for the past 4 years. You look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins have sneakily lost players, but also brought back solid players in Kendall Fuller and Barrett and Brooks and Jonnu Smith. They slowly, they lost big guys in Christian Wilkins and Robert Hunt, but they also took that money, that huge amount of money that they would have had to pay those two guys, and evenly dispersed it, and now have 2 third-round picks next year while still building up this roster. For me, the biggest worry about the Miami Dolphins is that offensive line, and can Tua take the next step? Now, Tua's doing his due diligence this offseason. I've already talked about that, so we'll see how that all pans out. But for me, the Dolphins are kind of still the same. Now, again, we have the draft. So the Bills can go in the draft, pick up a big receiver. The Dolphins go in the draft, pick up a big defensive tackle. All these things could happen all of a sudden. The Dolphins and the Bills are kind of still in the same criteria, same area, even though the Bills on defense lost a lot, but they still have a head coach who's a very good defense coordinator. And again, same thing, Dolphins. So to me, it's like they lost a little, but they could still get back to where they were when it comes to the draft. Now, the Jets are the biggest unknown in this division to me as of today. You got Aaron Rodgers coming back from ACL, from Achilles. You got Mike Williams coming back from an ACL. Tyron Smith dealing with injury history. You got Morgan Moses with a pec injury. All of these 4 guys really depends on if the Jets are going to be the Jets of the past 2 years, where their defense is carrying them, but the offense falls apart because of injuries. It's the biggest unknown. And you could say the same thing for any NFL team, but those NFL teams have kind of added more reliable players, whereas the Jets went out and made big upsides, but also big downsides, because it could go one of 2 ways. Mike Williams could come back and not be the same guy. Tyron Smith can get hurt again. Morgan Moses can be dealing with that pec injury more than we know. Aaron Rodgers might not look the same because of the Achilles. There's so many unknowns. For me, the Jets, their win to loss, high ceiling to low ceiling, is so huge. They could be a 5-win team, or they can be a 12-win team. That's how I see the Jets, and I don't see an in-between. Because with the gambles that they made on their offense, which are great gambles, and like I said, the trade they made with Philly, huge. But again, I see that as an equal trade because they lost Bryce Huff. It's like a crapshoot with the Jets. They're either going to be really good, or they're going to be really bad because of injuries, and because of the injured players that they added are just not what they were. And then again, you got the Patriots, who are just rebuilding. They'll probably grab a quarterback in this draft. They'll build around him. It's probably going to take another year. Next year, they'll be super competitive, and the East is going to look crazy. Either the Dolphins are still doing good or not. So it's going to be interesting. But when you look at the betting odds, as of right now, I think it's DraftKings has the Bills at 10.5, the Dolphins at 10.5, the Jets at 9.5, and I think the Patriots at 5.5. Which is interesting to me because, again, the Dolphins lost a lot. The Bills also lost a lot, but they still have them at 10.5 wins over under, which is very interesting to me. So it's I got to double check it to see if it went down after the Bills lost Stephon Diggs. But what does Vegas know about these teams that we don't? You know what I'm saying? Why are the Dolphins still at 10.5, even though they lost AVG, they lost Christian Wilkins, Robert Hunt, they lost some big guys. Why are they still at 10.5? I find that very, very interesting. But comment below. I tried my best to be unbiased. I tried my best to give you an open perspective on each of the teams. Comment below if you're a Bills fan, Jets fan, Patriots fan. Obviously, you're a Dolphins fan. Let me know. And was I somewhat fair? Do you see, like, how do you see it all panning out? Again, it's right now going into the 2024 season and going into the draft. I cannot distinctively sit here and tell you they are the favorites to win the AFC East. Last year was Buffalo. The year before that, it was Buffalo because of what they still had. Now, the Jets could win the division. The Dolphins could win the division. I don't think it's the Patriots, but I wouldn't be surprised. And the only reason why I don't is because you don't have Bill Belichick anymore and you have a new head coach. So you don't know what you're getting with him, but anything could happen. So comment below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. But like usual, stay classy. My friends out.